Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday, and welcome to the Community Brew Live. We are so excited that you are here. I'm going to toss it over to Chase this morning, and we're going to get started right out of the gate.
Awesome. It's good to be back here with you, Brooke. I've enjoyed being able to just watch the brew for the past couple mornings. It's been nice, but it's good to be back on here. I'm really excited about today and some of the conversations that we've been engaged in this week. And so, as we were planning this week, we knew that we wanted to hit a few key points, and the ideas that I think we've talked about this week, I think are going to be really important to our future, right? When we talk about gifts and we talk about student gifts and understanding the gifts that we bring to the table and the gifts that our students bring to the table, that's an important conversation. I think the idea, the gifts of people, right? This houses and caring connects, and the power that we're seeing across our district when kids and adults have opportunities to create community. There's a lot of power in that work. Yesterday, Laura and her team thinking about the gifts of place and how community continues to create this sense of purpose and authenticity, and it's a community centered. These community centered learning experiences, I think, are going to be really powerful in our future. So we were lining out the week. We said that today was going to be probably our most difficult day, because I think it's easy to see people and the power of people and the gifts of people. That's something that you can see visibly. You can visibly see the gifts of place and the gifts of our community. But this idea of purpose is a little bit more of an inanimate thing, and so how we talk about purpose and what that looks like, I think, is really important. So I think one of the things, though, that'll help us today, just to set some context, is this idea that purpose is really, as we think about it, and I think as we look at deep learning and we read about it, it's not just something that we can lead people to, right? They have to lead themselves to a large degree. And part of the work of educators is creating these experiences that allow kids to do that. I think that also hits on this idea that it's not just an accident. We can intentionally set up experiences that allow kids to understand their purpose and live out their purpose. And so I'm excited to talk about that today with this group. I think it'll be a fun day. So let's get started. So if we go back to deep learning,
Hang on, I have to interrupt you, okay? Because there's comments happening right now in the chat that are talking about your outfit today. So listen, I want everybody in YouTube land to know that literally I got on this call this morning and I was like, oh, hey, Chase dressed up this morning for the Community Brew. And I was not the only one that noticed that. Thank you very much to all of my friends in YouTube who validated my comment this morning. So without further ado, continue with the conversation.
I feel like we've set really low bar. Like I put on a pullover, and that's somehow dressing up. But it is what it is, I guess. Awesome. So if we go back to deep learning, we looked at chapter 2. One of the quotes that I think is really powerful is when the author starts to describe deep learning. And so I'm going to read that paragraph, and then I want to dive into some conversation. So it says, let's take a look at what's happening in classrooms, schools, and systems that are part of this social movement. Stop by a deep learning classroom and you'll see students who are voraciously curious and who are encouraged to ask questions of each other. Teachers, families, and experts across the community or globe. There's a constant buzz of conversation as students grapple with solving problems or investigating ideas so they can make sense of their world. Everyone is highly focused, and as a visitor, you may not be noticed, but if you listen in, you will find students able to articulate what they are doing and why. They are able to describe the skills they are mastering and the ways they will need and the ways they will need to get better. They lose track of time because the task is engaging and often work at home and on weekends because their imagination and interest have been captured. They take pride in describing their work for classmates or community members because it's meaningful, authentic, and relevant. It makes a difference. So one of the things that I want to start with this morning, and be interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this, is what is it about these learning environments that Fullen describes here in deep learning that helps support students in understanding their purpose or coming to a realization about their purpose. So I'm going to throw that out there and mute my mic.
Good morning. I'm Christy Morris, and I teach kindergarten at Bloomfield Elementary School. And when I read that quote in the book, it really stood out with me as well. And it made me think and compare to some of the learning environments that I have been a part of as a student in the past. Not all, but some of the learning environments, I felt like to the teacher that good teaching looked like a quiet, orderly classroom. They gave us information and we found a way to individually regurgitate that information back to them. And I think about a couple of those teachers, if they peeked into our classrooms today, they would think it was chaos. But it's organized chaos, and it's purposeful chaos, for lack of a better word. And I think about the activities that my students have been involved in this year. They have been communicators, they've asked questions, they've learned to collaborate with one another. And for kindergarten students, that's really important, to learn how to work with a partner and not always get your say in the process. So that's huge for kindergarten. But I think that as students do that and they begin to explore their passions and their talents, that helps them to develop their sense of purpose. Once we know what we're good at and what gives us joy, then that helps us to know, well, what's my purpose?
Hi, I'm Cindy Brown. I'm at Cox's Creek Elementary, and this past year I did a first and second grade split. And next year I'm doing a second and third grade split. So I guess I'm kind of the split queen. When I read this deeper learning last year. As I read the chapters again for this today, I realized I saw it a lot more in our school than I did last year. And my comments from last year, I wrote in my book, how far are we from this? And we've just made some great strides this year towards this kind of deeper learning. And with my little guys this year, one of my struggles, I think, was getting the kids to trust their own questioning. The whole idea of asking the right inquiry question was really important to me this year, and getting them to see the whole process. They want to ask a question and have an answer still. And I think as educators, we kind of need to be okay with them asking a question that doesn't have an answer. And that's hard for us as educators because we want to make sure they know, and they expect us to know. They expect us to be able to tell them the answer and to say, I don't know, find out, let's go. That's different for the little guys in particular. They're used to adults being the authority, and to transfer that authority to them is one of the challenges I think that we're facing. But I think we're really putting some good processes in place for that.
Yeah, going off of what you guys just said, I think that one of the biggest things with deep learning is that it's not always pretty, and it oftentimes can look like a mess, and it can also sound like a mess sometimes. I know a lot of times with my kindergartners, obviously they're just beginning school. They're used to, some of them are only children. This is their first time being around other kids. And so the biggest thing for them was when they had conflicts, realizing that there is productive conflict resolution, and understanding that just because you're disagreeing with your friend doesn't mean you guys can't play together at recess 5 minutes later. And I think that's the cool part about kindergartners, is they are so forgiving that it does slip their mind that they just had an argument with their friend. But also a big part of that, Chase, that resonated with me was it talked about how these kids are so passionate about this that they go home or they go to their community or whatever. And it made me think about a recycling project that we did this year. And I had parents reaching out to me like, what are you doing in that classroom? Because my kid, look, Mr. Webster's shaking his head, yeah, because my kid is coming home wanting me to recycle or not waste things. And I don't know what they're talking about. And I had kids like so passionate about that they wanted their parents to do it too, which is awesome because, it meant something to them that they went home and talked about it. Whereas usually if you ask your kid what they do at school, they say nothing, or, they don't have an answer for you. So I think that that's the most powerful part of that for me, Chase.
I have to pop in here real quick because Chase mentioned it earlier this morning when you guys were hopping on the call before we went live, but we've got a lot of little teachers on here, and you guys are all really just inspiring me and the whole masses of people out there, just talking about how really your all's beliefs show that this chaotic style of learning can happen with 5 to 7 year olds. And I want you guys to, there's so many comments over here happening that I want to read, but we just use up all of our time. So you all have to go back and read through some of these comments if you're not watching them happen live, but they're just the cold chill kind of comments. So the 3 of you wonderful teachers that have spoken, I just want you to know that you have a huge fan club out there on YouTube and Facebook right now who believe in the work that you're doing and are inspired by your work. So I just had to pop in. Carry on.
Yeah, I wanted to hop in too real quick before we go on, because I think what I've seen, so I got to see all of you guys as just touring school and seeing what goes on, and you're obviously rock stars and grateful for the work that happens. But I think what's cool too as a parent of a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and seeing the work that's going on across our district, is it talks about in there it is chaotic and things are going, that might be the sense of the room, but it talks in that line about students are able to articulate what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I think what's powerful for me is when my 7-year-old can articulate from a first grade classroom, we're doing this and here's why we're doing this. And it's, as the director of student leadership and learning, or as a parent, that's very powerful to be able to hear him articulate that. So yeah, it's really cool to see that play out with, our younger classrooms. Mark, I know I cut you off, buddy. Sorry.
That's all right. I will say it was definitely a challenge to try and rein Madison back in and tell her not everything can be recycled, honey. Just because we have all these boxes does not mean we're keeping them. We won't throw them in the landfill. We'll burn them in the fire pit out back. That'll be better for you. I think what's so powerful, even in the work with the littles, is this idea of we become less essential as teachers, as content providers, and we become facilitators of helping kids find spots where they can really express the gifts that they're going to manifest. Whether that's as littles, Madison doesn't know what her gifts are yet. She's just now starting to develop that language. So she's playing and trying to figure things out and, expressing herself in a different way than she was when she was, in preschool or even in the early parts of her education. So I think as we move up into older grades in high school, it really becomes facilitators of the process of learning. How can we teach kids how to learn about something that they're passionate about? And then not only that, but then it's the managing of not everything that you're going to do in your life are you going to be passionate about, but how do you bring your best self to everything that you do and imbue it with this creative spirit, this energy, this empowered life that you've created for yourself. Even if you're not doing, I'm not passionate about mowing the lawn, but I want to be present and do a good job because that's a reflection of where we live in our space and things like that. So how do we continue to do and build those experiences for kids is really important.
Hi, I am Mariana Smith, and I'm a teacher at Old Kentucky Home Middle School. And when I really think about deep learning and I think about the skills and competencies that we offer to our students at OKH, I really think about our ag program. There's 2 of us. It is myself and Ms. Dykes, and this year has been our launch. And it has been such an amazing process to allow our kids to show their skills and find their purpose. And I think about this year, we started our garden, and even though we didn't get to finish it with the school year being cut, I just think about how me and Ms. Dykes, we took the role of showing our students how to build a raised bed, but then we allowed them to facilitate to other students to show their skills and passion and purpose. to allow them a role in our garden. And I just think about those things that we offer in ag education to our kiddos. And in an ag room, it is very messy. Sometimes my room is upside down, but I think about those opportunities and skills that we get to offer to our students. And I love how many different career paths that agriculture has to offer. So to allowing our students to become the facilitators in our classroom is such a huge part.
Mr. Pletz, or Matthew Pletz from Bloomfield Middle School. One of the things that I noticed with deeper learning is that not only are we teaching to the students, but we're also helping them work towards a possible career. A lot of times, at least when I was growing up, school was all about, taking a test as opposed to learning how to be a citizen, a global citizen, or a citizen in a smaller community. But now I feel like with our, with deeper learning, it's teaching these kids, like you guys have all said, like I have a 10-year-old that goes to Cox's Creek, and she's doing the same stuff. We have boxes that she doesn't want to throw away because she wants to recycle as well. And so getting these kids at a younger age, and even at the middle school and high school age, to understand that not everyone's going to go to college. College is not made for everybody. And as a teacher, that sometimes breaks our mind. But truth is not everyone's meant to go to college. And if we teach these kids to actually live in society as a working member of society, that's just going to be a massive difference in education as a whole.
All right, it's my turn. I'm Amanda Hoskins. I'm the backpack leader at New Haven School. And deeper learning for me is allowing students to just think outside of the box, and we have to find ways to really push them outside of what they have always seen this classroom to look like. So for me, I had a backpack leader class. We called them the Blue Crew, and we had the opportunity to go on all of these externships and visit all of these companies and community partners in Nelson County, and just seeing their faces when we would visit, and their questioning when we would visit these places of business. I can't wait to see the possibilities. I was excited about the second part of the year, and then we kind of got cut short, and so we didn't get to dive deep into what is going to happen for next school year for the Blue Crew and for New Haven School. But I'm really excited to really continue those conversations and dig deep into what we can do as a school. Just seeing how they chose their community partner. We community partnered with the Bread for Life Food Pantry, and their reasoning behind it. It just made my heart so happy. So I'm excited to see where we can go from here.
Awesome. I think one of the things that you guys are talking a lot about is, I think in traditional models of school, purpose has been something that, like, we thought we had to lead kids to, and like we had this idea of what they should do, and the curriculum or the standards or the thing says you do this and you'll get there. And I think like what deep learning teaches us is that there's not a direct path from point A to point B for a kid to go from school to finding purpose, right? Like, it's messy. It's got lots of turns and twists and things like that. And I think it's important that we realize, like, in Nelson County schools, we've got 4,700 different paths to that purpose. So it's really about creating those those experiences that allow kids to do that. So as we think about I know I would invite Brooke to jump in on comments, but I looked at the comments and everybody's like giving you guys love and popping in. There's a ton of comments over there, so it'd be hard to probably dig through those, Brooke. But I think so let's go with this route. So if we think about opportunities really that we have either done this year or that we're thinking about for next year, for kids to really be able to demonstrate their purpose and being able to live some of that out, what are some things that you've seen or some things that you're tossing around?
Well, this year with my first and second graders, we did a PBL on flexible seating, where the kids, they researched the seating. Kelsey Berryman was a rock star and helped out with that, learned how to read reviews on different types of seating. My first graders did the budget, did a great job with it. And they designed the room, they did everything. And that was really scary for me because I got some control of the way my classroom looks, and I gave it to the kids. And I didn't want to do that at all because I was sure I knew better than they knew the way things were supposed to go. And I also have a few issues with, symmetry and things like that that need to happen in my room. So it got really messy with them. And we broke into groups and they were able to choose their groups. And I gave them a curated list of seats to choose from. But the whole question was, how do we make our learning better? Not what kind of seats would be fun to sit on, but what's going to help our learning. And we finished, we did our presentations, and I gave up a lot of ownership with that. My planning on that was day to day. So for Tuesday's plans, I would look at what we did Monday and think, okay, what comes next? And then Tuesday would come and I'd say, okay, that's not what comes next. I've got to think on my feet and do something else. And that was terrifying because I'm a planner. But at the end, our classroom and our seats looked great. And not only that, my kids became experts in the school. And they went out and they were interviewed by other grade levels who wanted to do it too. And they got to do little panel discussions of their own with other grade levels, and other grade levels came and saw our seats. And so they kind of got that empowerment. And I think for the kids, results were huge for them, because when the seats started coming in, they were like, we did this. This is ours. And this is our voice right there in front of us. And we started a second PBL on a behavior management system for our class because what we had going wasn't working. And one of my little guys who had kind of been a pill earlier, we're talking about the hacking school discipline and restorative justice. And he said, I think that's the way that we should go. And I said, well, why do you think that? And he said, well, because it helps us learn. That's the behavior management system that'll teach us why we're doing what we're doing. And from a second grader, that's a pill. I was so excited. And then the next week we were out for COVID. So I'm fairly devastated that didn't get to continue because I just couldn't wait to see what he specifically was going to do next. But the giving up control on my part and then them taking control was, I think, really powerful in the way that they saw themselves as learners.
I love you, Miss Brown. I really do. Like, I don't want to take over the conversation here. I haven't even really chimed in any this week on the panel, but I'm just so inspired by all of you people today. Like, I love this conversation, and I especially love, Miss Brown, your transparency with your type A-ness and letting go of that control. There's a lot of comments over in YouTube just talking about actually, I have to leave. This is my favorite one I've seen so far. Sonia Zelke said, Cindy's students loved the control and did such a fantastic job. Her class really led the revolution of flexible seating at CCES. So I'm like, isn't that the goal? To lead the revolution. I love that. I love that she left that comment for you. But I think it's inspiring too to hear you say, somebody who really appreciates control and is a planner, be able to take those next steps. I think that's really inspiring. And I know without a doubt that you are inspiring lots of other type A planner people out there to let go of some of that control. So I appreciate you, sis.
I think one of the things too that's important is sometimes we have this misconception that these type of deep learning experiences and planning and type A personality are not necessarily cohesive. But I think the reality is, you said this, it's really more planning on your part, because it's more of being able to think through different routes and different ways that we're going to explore that question that you asked. And every day is a little bit unique and different. And so I think it's kind of changes a little bit, not necessarily that it doesn't exist, but that it changes. What are some other things that you guys are thinking about with this?
I wrote a quote down from the book because I don't remember as well as I did 20 years ago, but something that really struck with me is we don't have to create the learning process, but rather find ways to redefine it so we unleash the natural potential of learning. And just yesterday, we met as a team to begin planning for next year with Boston Training Center. And it was so exciting, that process of planning, because we don't really have to reinvent the wheel, but we do have to think about how do the standards fit in. And as a kindergarten teacher, I think I've got to teach them how to read. How does that fit into the process? And it was exciting in our team meeting, all the ideas that we were throwing out. And as we were going along, I thought, oh, well, that's where economics can tie in. Oh, we're going to tie in community and social studies here. Oh, I've got some great ideas for nonfiction reading that'll fit right here in writing. And in that process, it all begins to come together. So I think that it's powerful, that collaboration that we do with our teammates at school, and that helps us to be able to figure out deeper learning and how it looks without giving so much control up that you feel like it's just out of control, if that makes sense. So I'm so excited about the future and what we're going to do with the Boston Training Center, what we're doing to really build on the deeper learning experiences this year. I'm just so pumped about next year and watching those littles grow and learn, communicate, ask questions, all those important lifetime skills.
Yeah, I would say, like, for me as a principal, finding kids' purpose in the work that I do is probably the number one thing. When I think of the students that come into my building, they've either had a bad experience with school or they don't like school for whatever reason. So helping get them connected to something that redefines what learning looks like for them has been really paramount. I'm really proud of our team because we've completely obliterated the traditional school schedule to put classes in a model of like the Google 80-20 that are going to connect teachers back to their purpose, things that teachers really appreciate about teaching, as well as allowing kids to have some freedom and flexibility to take things that they really want to take while still achieving those common things in our school district, that like credits and graduation requirements and things that we can't get away from, but we can reconfigure and restructure and kind of reimagine as we think about, like, what does learning look like for kids that hate school and don't want to be in school? How can we attack that from a different lens and make them really love school? And we've had some success with some of our students, even this year, when we just barely scratched the surface. So.
Yeah, going off of that, I think that we have to obviously come into this year with the mindset that our kids are going to be different emotionally, and it's going to look a little bit differently in the classroom as well. So where my mind's already going for next year and the start of next year is like you said, Ms. Brown, is like creating a place for our kids to go, and they would create this place where they could go if they were feeling anxious about all the stuff that's going on, or if they need a place to calm down, but that would be created by them based off of their own needs. So I think that in every classroom, we're going to have at least one kid that has gone through some sort of trauma through all this time. And I think that that's where my mind's going right now for the start of next year, just knowing that on the forefront. And so I'm hoping to, release some of that responsibility at the start of next year and letting them create that instead of me spending the summer creating something that might not work for them.
I don't want to end the conversation because I know it's 9 o'clock, but this is really good conversation. For Mariana or Let's, y'all have anything that you want to add to the conversation?
I think for us, as this deep learning is happening, one really cool thing that this past year with our future story coaching is we allowed our students to say, like, what electives they wanted to see next year. And we were able as teachers to really implement those with our courses next year. And for me, I get to teach food science this upcoming year. And I think one really cool aspect is we're going to do a cookbook. And I think of all the different things that come with preparing that, whether it's the marketing, the technology to do it, finding out what's it going to cost, and getting our kiddos connected with community members is something that's going to allow our students to look at an experience and be like, I had a purpose in creating this. And so I'm so excited for all the different opportunities at OKH that we're going to offer next year. And I'm so excited for our kiddos and can't wait till they get back to us.
Well, that's the one thing that I would like to say, and it goes with what the book was talking about, the chapters that we were reading. It basically talks about living as a perpetual amateur, and then basically that we're learning about taking risks. If we teach the students that it's okay to take a risk, they're going to be more likely to do something that may take them beyond what they thought was possible before. Because sometimes even as adults, we put up a wall to where as far as we're going to go. And if we teach the kids that it's okay to fail every once in a while, it's okay to not do things the best way possible, because essentially at life we're all amateurs. There's nobody that is professional at life. Nobody.
Well, I think I love that phrase, living as a perpetual amateur. I think there's a lot of power in that, because I think a lot of times we're viewed as these experts that, somehow are standing in front of classrooms to impart this expertise on kids. And I think that's what we learn, right? And so you guys have brilliantly articulated that today. So I love that phrase. And, I think like if you haven't got a chance to go visit Mariana's classroom at OKH and the ag, I think if we think about middle school agriculture and the power of some of that, she does a really great job. I'm excited to see those classes next year. You've got some really cool classes on the docket. So those are some really neat experiences that, a sixth grader, seventh grader, they're going to be able to experience. That's really going to, I think, speak to a lot of their purpose. So thank you guys so much for hopping on the brew this morning. I will say that Pletz gets some kind of award for his background game. I mean, it's impressive. To see what he's able to do over there with the backgrounds. I'm going to have a course or something.
I was going to say, Randy Adams said, Pletz is unique. I love it. I love it. And then Natalie Hurst said, Pletz bringing the heat with his backgrounds and his conversation. So I just had to throw that little comment over there for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're excited about tomorrow. Brooke, I'll let you kind of close it up.
All right. Well, I have to say, we've had brews in the past 947 days where we've had these student leaders on, and I've said to many, I'm like, I just love you guys so much. I want you to be my best friend. And I have to say that I feel this way about every single person in this call. I'm like, golly, I'm looking back at my little grid. Like, you guys are amazing. I love you so much. You are so inspiring. And this was just the best conversation. So thank you to all of you for letting me hang out with you this morning. It was amazing. So we'll be back tomorrow. Oh, I forgot. I have to give a shout out really quick to Victoria Stiles this morning and her bar workout. OMG. It was so good. I've never done that before. Don't know if I ever will again. But it was so good. Victoria and Jonathan and Kate Essex, our wellness leaders this morning, have absolutely killed it this week. And we will be doing dance fitness tomorrow with Kate Essex from OKH. So join us tomorrow at 8 and for another special episode of the Community Brew Live at 8:30. So we will see you all soon. Make it an impossible day. Bye.
Thank you.